In 1967, at just 25 years old, the absolute peak of his career, Muhammad Ali was stripped of his world title, banned from boxing for over 3 years, and threatened with 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Not for losing a fight. Not for cheating. But for saying no to war. With a single decision, Ali destroyed a career worth tens of millions of dollars, to protect one thing the world could never take from him, his dignity. What makes this story unforgettable is not what Muhammad Ali lost, but what he was willing to lose. At the moment the ban was announced, Ali was the most famous athlete in the world. He was undefeated. He was the heavyweight champion. He was generating the modern equivalent of millions of dollars per fight. And overnight, it all vanished. No fights. No income. No stage. No applause. For 1,300 days, Ali was erased from the sport he had mastered. While other champions built their legacies, he aged in silence. While his rivals sharpened their skills, his prime years slipped away, ages 25 to 28, the most valuable years a heavyweight boxer can ever have. The public didn't see a hero. They saw a traitor. Sponsors disappeared. Friends distanced themselves. Television mocked him. Newspapers painted him as arrogant, dangerous, ungrateful. And here's the most brutal truth. Ali knew all of this would happen before he said no. He knew the cost. He accepted the punishment. And he refused to take the easy way out. This was no impulsive act. This was a man standing alone, against his government, his industry, and public opinion, fully aware that history might never forgive him. Most people fight to protect their success. Ali chose to risk everything, to protect his soul. And that decision would redefine greatness forever. Long before the world knew him as Muhammad Ali, he was just a boy growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, in a country divided by race, fear, and silence. Born in 1942, Ali entered a world where being black meant learning limits early, where to sit, where not to speak, where dreams were quietly discouraged before they could even form. His childhood wasn't shaped by luxury or safety, but by constant reminders that his voice did not matter. And that reality planted something deep inside him, a refusal to accept invisibility. Ali's father was a sign painter with a volatile temper, proud but often angry, struggling to provide. His mother was deeply religious, gentle, and protective, trying to shield her children from a world she knew could be cruel. Home was not always peaceful, but it was honest. Ali learned early that strength didn't always look like control, it often looked like endurance. And outside those walls, the streets taught him another lesson: respect had to be earned, not given. The turning point came when Ali was 12 years old. His bicycle was stolen. Furious and humiliated, he reported the theft to a local police officer named Joe Martin. Ali promised he would beat up whoever took it. Martin listened, then calmly replied, "You better learn how to fight first." That sentence changed the direction of Ali's life. Martin also happened to be a boxing trainer. What began as anger quickly became discipline. What started as revenge became purpose. In the boxing gym, Ali discovered something rare, a space where rules were clear and effort was rewarded. He wasn't the strongest kid. He wasn't the quietest either. But he was fast. He was curious. And most of all, he believed in himself long before anyone else did. While other boys trained in silence, Ali talked. He bragged. He predicted victories. At first, people laughed. But behind the words was focus. Ali trained relentlessly, not just to win fights, but to be seen, to prove that he was more than what society told him he was allowed to be. As a teenager, Ali began winning amateur fights, then tournaments. His confidence grew louder, but so did his awareness. Traveling for matches exposed him to segregation on a national scale. He could win in the ring, then be refused service at restaurants afterward. He could be cheered by crowds, then treated like a second-class citizen once the applause ended. Those contradictions shaped him. Boxing gave him power, but the world reminded him that power alone wasn't enough. This tension created the foundation of Ali's identity. He didn't just want to be great, he wanted to be undeniable. He studied fighters, but he also studied people. He understood performance, language, and attention. He learned that if the world was going to judge him anyway, he might as well control the narrative. His voice became a weapon as sharp as his fists. Not to entertain, but to protect himself. By the time Ali reached his late teens, boxing was no longer an outlet. It was a mission. He wasn't running from poverty anymore. He was running toward meaning. Every fight was proof that he existed, that he mattered, that he would not shrink to fit expectations. The gym had taught him how to fight opponents. Life had taught him how to fight systems. This is where Ali's story truly begins, not with championships or controversy, but with a child who learned early that silence was dangerous. Boxing didn't create his courage. It revealed it. And the world had no idea that this loud, confident young fighter was still preparing for the hardest battles of his life, battles that would have nothing to do with punches, and everything to do with conviction. By the time Muhammad Ali stepped onto the global stage, it was already clear, he was not built to follow instructions. Boxing had taught him discipline, but it never taught him obedience. And that difference would define everything that followed. In 1960, Ali traveled to Rome as an Olympic boxer. He was just 18 years old, lean, fast, and still unknown to the world. What he lacked in experience, he compensated for with fearlessness. Fight after fight, he moved differently, lighter on his feet, quicker with his hands, confident to the point of arrogance. When he won the Olympic gold medal, America celebrated him as a symbol of promise. But Ali saw something else. He saw a platform. And he knew he wouldn't waste it trying to blend in. Turning professional, Ali entered a boxing world ruled by tradition and hierarchy. Heavyweights were expected to be brutal, silent, and intimidating. Ali was none of those things. He danced. He smiled. He talked, constantly. He predicted the round he would knock opponents out. He rhymed. He mocked. To the boxing establishment, he was a joke. To promoters, he was a risk. To the press, he was an annoyance. But Ali understood something most fighters didn't. Boxing wasn't just fought in the ring, it was fought in the mind, in the media, and in public perception. While others trained only their bodies, Ali trained attention. Every word he spoke was deliberate. Every boast was calculated. He wasn't just selling fights, he was shaping identity. His style inside the ring was just as disruptive. Heavyweights weren't supposed to move like Ali did. He kept his hands low. He relied on speed over power. He avoided punches instead of absorbing them. Critics called it reckless. Trainers said it would get him killed. Ali listened, and ignored them all. Because every time he stepped into the ring, he proved them wrong. As his undefeated record grew, so did the backlash. Many fans loved him. Many hated him. But no one could ignore him. Ali was forcing the sport to evolve, and that made people uncomfortable. He wasn't just challenging opponents, he was challenging expectations of how a black athlete was supposed to behave. He refused humility. He refused silence. And most dangerously, he refused gratitude. Around this time, Ali began drifting further from the identity he had been given. The name Cassius Clay, a name inherited from a slave owner, started to feel like a cage. Ali was searching for meaning beyond boxing, beyond applause. He began listening to voices that spoke about self-worth, independence, and spiritual ownership. For the first time, boxing wasn't the center of his life. Purpose was. This inner shift created tension. The more Ali won, the more visible he became. And the more visible he became, the more pressure there was to conform. Sponsors wanted a champion they could control. Media wanted a hero who knew his place. Ali wanted none of it. He wasn't interested in being accepted, he wanted to be honest. Then came the fight that would change everything. In 1964, Ali faced Sonny Liston, a terrifying champion known for his violence and power. The odds were stacked heavily against Ali. Experts dismissed him as loud, fragile, unprepared. But Ali never doubted the outcome. He said it openly. Repeatedly. And when the fight ended, with Liston defeated, the world was stunned. Ali didn't just win the heavyweight title. He shattered the image of what a champion looked like. Standing in the ring, screaming, celebrating, declaring himself the greatest, Ali crossed an invisible line. Some saw confidence. Others saw disrespect. But what they were really seeing was a man claiming ownership of his greatness, without asking permission. Soon after, Ali made another announcement. He rejected the name Cassius Clay and declared himself Muhammad Ali. To him, it was liberation. To much of America, it was provocation. The backlash was immediate. Reporters refused to use his new name. Commentators mocked his beliefs. Fans turned away. Ali didn't retreat. He doubled down. This was the moment his path truly separated from everyone else's. He was no longer just fighting opponents. He was fighting narratives. Fighting expectations. Fighting a system that rewarded compliance and punished independence. And he knew the risks. Every victory brought him closer to power. And power attracts resistance. Ali could have softened his voice. He could have played the role. He could have protected his future. Instead, he chose something far more dangerous. He chose to be himself, fully, loudly, unapologetically. This wasn't recklessness. It was preparation. Because long before the world would test his courage in ways far greater than any boxing match, Ali had already made his decision. He would never bend to become acceptable. He would rather fall standing than succeed kneeling. And soon, that belief would cost him everything. By the mid-1960s, Muhammad Ali wasn't just winning fights, he was redefining what dominance looked like. The heavyweight division had never seen anything like him. Champions before Ali relied on fear. Ali relied on inevitability. He didn't just believe he would win. He convinced everyone else long before the bell rang. After defeating Sonny Liston, Ali stood at the center of the sporting world. He was young, undefeated, charismatic, and impossible to ignore. His fights weren't just events, they were spectacles. Crowds didn't come only to see punches. They came to hear predictions, insults, poetry. Ali turned boxing promotions into performances, and himself into the headline. In an era before social media, he mastered attention better than anyone alive. Inside the ring, his dominance looked effortless. He moved with a rhythm no heavyweight should have had. His footwork confused opponents. His speed embarrassed them. Fighters trained their entire lives to land one clean punch on him, and often failed. Ali didn't just avoid damage, he humiliated challengers by making them miss, then reminding them out loud that they were missing. The victories stacked up quickly. Each win increased his confidence, but more importantly, it expanded his influence. Ali wasn't content being a champion athletes admired. He wanted to be a figure people listened to. His words carried weight, and he knew it. Interviews became battlegrounds. Press conferences became stages. He spoke about race, identity, faith, and power with the same fearlessness he showed in the ring. Money followed. Endorsements followed. Fame followed. Ali was becoming everything the American dream claimed to reward: success, wealth, global recognition. But beneath the surface, there was tension. The same confidence that thrilled fans unsettled institutions. Ali did not express gratitude the way champions were expected to. He did not apologize for winning. And he refused to dilute his beliefs to make others comfortable. As his fame grew, so did scrutiny. Every word was analyzed. Every stance questioned. Ali was no longer just an athlete, he was a symbol. To some, he represented pride and self-determination. To others, he was a dangerous example, too loud, too confident, too independent. The more Ali succeeded, the clearer it became that his rise wasn't being celebrated equally by everyone. Yet from the outside, it looked like invincibility. Ali was untouchable. He was the face of boxing, the face of confidence, the face of victory. He lived in the spotlight, surrounded by cameras, crowds, and constant noise. And for a moment, it felt like the momentum could never stop. But greatness has a price when it isn't aligned with obedience. Behind the scenes, Ali was becoming increasingly aware that his success came with conditions. Promoters wanted control. Media wanted predictability. Sponsors wanted silence on uncomfortable topics. Ali offered none of it. He spoke freely, and often provocatively. He rejected the idea that success required submission. To him, winning meant ownership, not just of titles, but of identity. The more power Ali gained, the closer he moved toward an inevitable collision. Because America loved champions, but only those who stayed within invisible boundaries. Ali was stepping beyond them. He wasn't just winning belts, he was challenging the idea of who was allowed to speak, to lead, to dissent. Still, from the outside, it all looked perfect. The money, the fame, the dominance, the image of a man who had everything. What most people couldn't see was how fragile that perfection really was. Ali's empire was built not on compliance, but on conviction. And conviction is expensive. The illusion of glory is that it feels permanent. That success, once achieved, will protect you. Ali was about to learn the opposite. That the higher you rise without compromise, the harder the fall when power decides you've gone too far. At his peak, Ali had everything the world could offer. And that is precisely why the next decision he made would shock everyone. Because when faced with a choice between protecting his throne and protecting his beliefs, Ali didn't hesitate. The glory was real. But it was never the point. And soon, the world would take it all away, not because he failed, but because he refused to bend. At the height of his power, Muhammad Ali was finally forced to confront a truth most champions never face: success does not protect you when your beliefs threaten the system that elevated you. In 1966, as the Vietnam War escalated, Ali received a draft notice from the United States government. For many athletes, this was a formality, something to be managed quietly, avoided discreetly, or embraced for public approval. For Ali, it was a moment of reckoning. He didn't respond with hesitation. He didn't ask for favors. He didn't hide behind excuses. Ali stood before the world and said something no global sports icon had ever said so clearly: he refused to fight in a war he did not believe in. His reasoning was simple, and that simplicity made it dangerous. He said he had no quarrel with the Vietnamese people. He said his faith forbade him from killing. He said he would not trade his conscience for acceptance. The response was immediate and ruthless. Within hours, the backlash began. Politicians condemned him. Media outlets attacked his intelligence, his patriotism, his character. He was labeled ungrateful, reckless, delusional. The same country that celebrated his victories now questioned his right to belong. And then came the punishment. Ali was stripped of his heavyweight title. His boxing license was revoked. He was banned from fighting in every major state. The prime of his career, ages 25 to 28, was erased with a signature. The financial consequences were brutal. Overnight, Ali lost his primary source of income. Fight purses vanished. Sponsorships disappeared. Legal fees piled up as he faced the possibility of 5 years in prison. The man who once filled arenas now struggled to support himself. But the economic loss was only the surface wound. What hurt more was isolation. Friends grew distant. Fellow athletes stayed silent. Some privately agreed with him, but publicly turned away. Ali became radioactive. Supporting him meant risking careers, reputations, access. And so, many chose safety. Ali was left to carry the weight alone. For the first time since childhood, boxing was no longer there to save him. No gym. No fights. No release. The rhythm that once defined his life was gone. Days stretched into months. Months into years. And in that silence, doubt began to whisper. Ali was confident, but he was not immune. He asked himself questions he had never needed to ask before. What if he was wrong? What if history didn't remember his reasons, only his refusal? What if he never fought again? What if this decision destroyed not just his career, but his future? These were not public questions. These were private battles fought far from cameras and crowds. Ali traveled, spoke at universities, defended his stance wherever he was allowed. But speeches do not replace purpose. Applause does not replace action. And for a man built for movement, stillness was torture. Every year away from the ring felt like a slow erosion. His body aged without competition. His timing dulled. His speed, once legendary, could not be trained without opponents. Meanwhile, new fighters rose. New champions claimed titles that once belonged to him. Boxing moved on, as it always does. And Ali watched from the outside, knowing that time was something even conviction could not stop. Yet despite everything, despite the anger, the loss, the fear, Ali did not recant. He did not apologize. He did not soften his stance to make re-entry easier. He accepted the consequences fully. Not because it was easy, but because reversing his decision would have meant something worse than failure. It would have meant betrayal of himself. This was the darkest stretch of Ali's life. Not because he was defeated, but because he was tested without an opponent to punch. The war he was fighting now was invisible. And it was far more exhausting than any title defense. And the hardest part was still ahead. As the years passed, the pressure on Muhammad Ali intensified, not because he was weakening, but because the world expected him to break. His legal battle crawled through the courts, uncertain and exhausting. Every appeal carried hope, and every delay stole more time. Time was the one thing Ali could not afford to lose. Heavyweight champions are not remembered for longevity, but for timing. And Ali's timing was being taken from him day by day. Public opinion remained divided. Some began to see him as principled. Many still saw him as defiant. Television panels debated his intelligence. Newspapers questioned his sanity. He wasn't portrayed as a man of conscience, but as a troublemaker who refused to do his duty. The message was clear: if you step outside the boundaries of obedience, you will be isolated until you return, or disappear. Ali felt that isolation deeply. The phone stopped ringing. Invitations stopped coming. The noise of fame was replaced by silence. And silence has a way of amplifying doubt. There were nights when he lay awake, replaying the decision in his mind, not because he regretted it, but because he feared what it might cost his family, his future, his legacy. Conviction does not eliminate fear. It forces you to live with it. Physically, the absence of competition took its toll. Boxing is not just skill, it is instinct, timing, reaction. Without real opponents, Ali trained in fragments. Shadowboxing. Road work. Sparring when allowed. But it wasn't the same. His body aged quietly. His reflexes dulled. He knew it. And knowing it hurt more than any punch ever had. Still, the temptation to surrender never won. Ali was offered exits. He could have issued a carefully worded apology. He could have distanced himself from his beliefs. He could have played the role of the repentant champion, eager to rejoin the system. Many around him urged him to do exactly that. They said he had made his point. That he had nothing left to prove. That survival sometimes mattered more than principle. Ali listened. And then he refused. Because deep down, he understood something most people never fully confront: once you betray your core belief, you can never fully trust yourself again. Winning titles would mean nothing if the cost was self-respect. Returning to the ring under conditions he didn't believe in would hollow out every future victory. Ali wasn't afraid of losing fights. He was afraid of losing himself. As the band dragged on, something subtle changed. The anger that once fueled him softened into clarity. Ali began to see his struggle as larger than boxing. His absence became a statement. His endurance became symbolic. Slowly, voices began to shift. Younger people. Students. Activists. Those questioning authority saw in Ali a reflection of their own doubts and courage. The same stance that had isolated him now gave him meaning. When the U.S. Supreme Court finally overturned his conviction, it wasn't just a legal victory. It was validation, not that he was right in everyone's eyes, but that he had the right to stand by his beliefs. Ali was free to fight again. But freedom came with a price. He was no longer the same fighter who had been banned. The time away had changed him, physically, mentally, spiritually. The question was no longer whether Ali could return. The question was whether a man who had lost his prime years, his speed, and his certainty could reinvent himself against younger, hungrier opponents. Whether conviction alone could carry him back to the top. Ali didn't know the answer. But he stepped forward anyway. Because the darkest war he had faced, the war between success and self, had already been fought. And he had survived it without surrender. Whatever happened next in the ring would matter less than the fact that when the world demanded he kneel, he stood. And that quiet strength would become the foundation of his rebirth. When Muhammad Ali finally returned to the ring, the world didn't see a savior. It saw a question mark. 3.5 years away from professional boxing is an eternity, especially for a heavyweight whose greatest weapon had always been speed. Ali was no longer the untouched prodigy who danced through opponents. He was older, slower, and carrying a body that had aged without battle. What remained was not certainty, but resolve. The comeback began under unforgiving lights. Every movement was scrutinized. Every round compared to the memory of who he used to be. Critics were relentless. They said the ban had ruined him. That the reflexes were gone. That the timing was off. Ali heard it all, and accepted part of it. He knew the truth: he could not return as the same fighter. So he chose to become a different one. His first major test came against Joe Frazier. It was billed as the fight of the century, but for Ali, it was something else entirely. It was proof. Proof that he still belonged. Proof that conviction hadn't turned into weakness. The fight was brutal. 15 rounds of punishment, endurance, and will. Ali lost by decision. For the first time, the world saw him defeated. But something unexpected happened. The loss didn't diminish him. It reframed him. Ali walked away bloodied, exhausted, and respected. He had proven that exile hadn't broken him. But respect doesn't win titles. Reinvention does. Ali studied his own decline with honesty. He understood that speed would no longer save him. So he shifted strategy. He learned to absorb punishment, to conserve energy, to outthink younger opponents who came in confident and left confused. The bravado remained, but beneath it was patience. This evolution culminated in one of the most improbable moments in sports history, the fight against George Foreman in 1974. Foreman was everything Ali no longer was: young, powerful, terrifying. He knocked opponents out with ease. Experts dismissed Ali's chances almost entirely. The prediction was unanimous: Ali would be destroyed. Ali listened. And smiled. Instead of trying to outbox Foreman, Ali did something no one expected. He leaned back against the ropes and let Foreman punch himself into exhaustion. It was reckless. It was dangerous. And it was brilliant. Round after round, Ali absorbed blows, whispered insults, conserved strength. When Foreman finally slowed, Ali struck, clean, precise, final. The world watched in disbelief as Ali reclaimed the heavyweight title. This victory was different. It wasn't built on youth or speed. It was built on intelligence, resilience, and acceptance of limits. Ali didn't defeat Foreman with power. He defeated him with understanding, of himself, of his opponent, of the moment. It was the clearest proof yet that Ali's greatest strength had never been physical. But rebirth is never permanent. Each comeback carries its own cost. Ali continued to fight, pushing his body beyond what it could safely give. The punishment accumulated. The reflexes faded further. The damage was invisible at first, but it was real. Ali knew it. And still, he fought on. Not for money. Not for applause. But to complete the story on his own terms. The final fights were slower. Harder to watch. Ali was no longer invincible. But he was still unyielding. He had transformed defeat into wisdom and suffering into strategy. What mattered now wasn't dominance, it was dignity. Ali didn't chase perfection. He chased closure. By the time he stepped away, his legacy was no longer defined by wins and losses. It was defined by transformation. He had returned from exile, reclaimed his throne, and proven that greatness could evolve without surrendering its core. The man who once relied on speed had learned the power of stillness. The man who once spoke the loudest had learned when silence carried more weight. Ali's rebirth wasn't a second youth. It was a deeper maturity. And in many ways, it was more powerful than his first rise. Because it showed the world something rare, that falling does not disqualify you from greatness. That losing time does not mean losing purpose. And that identity, once tested and survived, becomes unbreakable. The ring gave Ali his platform back. But life had already given him something greater. Perspective. When Muhammad Ali finally stepped away from boxing, the silence felt different this time. Not empty. Not punishing. But final. The fights were over, yet the cost of them remained, written into his body, his movements, his voice. Years of punishment, sacrifice, and endurance had caught up with him. The hands that once moved like lightning now trembled. The voice that once filled arenas softened. Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a cruel reminder that greatness in the ring always demands payment in the end. To many, this should have been the moment his story faded. A fallen champion, slowed by illness, retreating quietly from the spotlight. But Ali's life after boxing proved something extraordinary. His influence did not depend on strength, speed, or sound. In fact, as his physical power diminished, his moral presence grew stronger. Ali no longer needed to shout to be heard. As the years passed, the man once labeled reckless and dangerous became a symbol of courage and compassion. The same decisions that had cost him his career were now re-examined through a different lens. History had caught up to his conscience. People began to understand that Ali had not resisted authority for attention, he had done it for integrity. The world that once demanded his silence now leaned in to listen. Ali dedicated himself to humanitarian work. He traveled across continents, meeting with leaders, visiting refugees, advocating for peace. He spoke softly now, but every word carried weight. Where once he had challenged opponents, he now challenged indifference. His presence alone was enough to remind people that strength could coexist with humility. Perhaps the most powerful image of Ali's later life came not from a boxing ring, but from a global stage. In 1996, trembling but determined, Ali stood before the world to light the Olympic torch. No bravado. No words. Just a man, visibly affected by illness, holding a flame that represented perseverance, resilience, and dignity. Millions watched in silence. And in that moment, Ali became more than a champion. He became human in the most profound way. What made this phase of Ali's life so impactful was its contrast. The man who once declared himself the greatest now moved with vulnerability. But there was no shame in it. Only truth. Ali showed the world that legacy is not about how loudly you win, but how honestly you endure. That heroism doesn't require invincibility, it requires courage without an audience. Generations who never saw Ali fight still felt his influence. Athletes learned from his fearlessness. Activists learned from his sacrifice. Ordinary people learned from his refusal to compromise identity for comfort. Ali had given up titles, time, and health, but in doing so, he left behind something rare, a blueprint for principled living. In his final years, Ali was celebrated not for what he could do, but for what he had done, and what he had stood for. The world no longer debated his choices. It honored them. The insults were gone. The doubts were gone. What remained was respect. Ali's legacy does not belong to boxing alone. It belongs to anyone who has ever been asked to trade values for success. To anyone who has faced pressure to stay silent when speaking felt dangerous. To anyone who has lost something precious by choosing what they believed was right. The hands that once shook the world now shook with illness. But the impact of those hands, steady, defiant, uncompromising, will never fade. Ali did not win every fight. But he won the one that mattered most. In the end, Muhammad Ali was never defined by how many fights he won, or how many titles he held. He was defined by the moments when winning would have been easier, yet he chose something harder. When silence was safer, he spoke. When obedience promised comfort, he chose consequence. And when the world told him to kneel, he stood still. Ali reminds us that greatness is not built only in moments of triumph, but in moments of sacrifice. Not when the crowd is cheering, but when it has turned away. Anyone can chase success. Very few are willing to protect their identity once success is at risk. That is the difference between being celebrated and being remembered. Most of us will never step into a boxing ring. We will never face a roaring crowd or a championship belt on the line. But every person faces a fight that looks just as real, choices between acceptance and honesty, safety and truth, comfort and conviction. Ali's life asks a simple, uncomfortable question. What are you willing to lose to stay true to yourself? Ali lost time. He lost money. He lost his body. But he never lost himself. And in a world that constantly asks us to compromise who we are to become who we're expected to be, that may be the greatest victory of all. Because when everything else is stripped away, character remains. And that is a legacy no one can take.